Hello, my name is Tony Cook. Welcome to Practical Environment Management using Ansible. Just want to maybe lay out a quick goal statement, just give you a little heads up for what you're in for. So over the past 18 months, my team and I have done a lot of work on how we as a company manage our environments, right? And so sharing with you some of the struggles that we faced initially, laying out the landscape for how we determine changes to make, what the benefits would be, and then covering some of the changes process-wise, tool-wise that we've come across, a lot of the benefits that we've seen, just kind of share some of our experience. So introduction, right? I've been at my current company for 18 months, and during that time, we have undergone a rapid and complete transformation. DevOps was very much a reactive team. We were the firefighters, right? We were the investigators, the remediators. We were the team that people turned to when there was an issue, an outage, a problem. My app won't run. I don't know what's wrong. Can you figure this out? And if you guys are like me or anyone on my team, you love that. You love figuring things out and making progress and making things work. But when I joined the company about 18 months ago, we made a very intentional effort to change DevOps from that reactive team to a proactive automation team, driving projects forward, producing tools and processes that we would hand off to other teams to provide benefit to other teams, and really trying to change the landscape of throwing things back and forth to different teams. I'm sure you felt that pain. In a software development lifecycle, there are often those stop gaps, those hard cuts where one team says, all right, my work is done. You guys figure it out from here. My work isn't ready yet. You figure it out from here. And DevOps had gone from filling a lot of that role to trying to pull back and say, let's create a tool and a process and a method to fix a lot of those issues. The biggest area that we saw that in, right, was environments. Our reactive mode of work also led to reactive environment configuration and management and maintenance. For us, a lot of the environments were one last environment, one more ask. We don't really need this one fully vetted. We just need something to do a certain task, and then it would hang around and it would stay and it would remain. And we felt a lot of pain from that. Our environment landscape continued to grow and didn't always grow the same way. The servers weren't always repeatable and manageable, and we felt a lot of that pain when it came to the maintenance and the management and the administration, and the issues that manifested were a reflection of the fact that our environments were not in great shape. We had dependency issues, we had infrastructure issues, we had issues because we didn't know everything going on in our environments. We were reactive to all of those things from creation through remediation. So looking at our environments, right? The problem that we have to solve is our environments are painful. They're cumbersome, they're big, there's a lot of them. Maintenance hurts, patching hurts, upgrading dependencies hurts. One of the really big things is that our servers would live a long time. We had people who set up a server and took care of the server and groomed the server and loved that server, which is never the best practice for maintaining known configuration of servers. We in DevOps support developers, right? Gene Kim wrote an excellent book, Accelerate. He also wrote the Unicorn Project, the DevOps Handbook, but one of the books he co-authored was Accelerate. And in that book, early on, they state that good IT practices give you both speed and stability. And loosely paraphrasing, part of my own thoughts, part of Gene Kim's thoughts, right? I'm convinced that it is so important to make it easier for developers to get their code into the highest environment possible with the shortest amount of work possible. Having known environments and stable environments are just absolutely key to that, and giving developers ownership of getting their code somewhere as opposed to just making them a piece of the puzzle and you have to go get approval and have someone else deploy it and someone else test it and you lose sight of the end goal doesn't provide anyone any benefit. So we have a problem with setting up new environments. We have a problem with maintaining known state of environments, and we have a problem with developers being disconnected from a lot of that. The landscape at our company in DevOps is one where we had some bottlenecks to solve. And from a DevOps perspective, I think that's oftentimes our goal, right? We are looking for a bottleneck and removing it. One of our bottlenecks was creating new environments. We met with one team and we sat down to look at their requirements for a new environment, and they did not have things documented very well. No offense to them. It was everyone's fault. There was not clear documentation on what was required, and we discussed what it would take to create a second environment based off of looking at the first environment and trying to match it up. And we gave them a huge estimate, many months. It would take several months, which is completely unacceptable to take months to spin up some servers when there are some that already exist. I mentioned we had servers that lived a long time, right? We had servers whose life cycle was measured in years. We've had this server for several years, and we need it for several more until it's no longer supported. We can't let anything happen to it. We need it to run. We need to do whatever we can to maintain it. And heaven forbid something happened to that server. We don't know how we would recreate another one. We had a couple servers who a single person at the company was the only person who knew how to set up some of the installations that we had and recreate that. And the biggest pain was all of our servers were recreated manually. All of the work was done manually. So if somebody said, hey, we have this special monolithic bottleneck server and we need a second one, we were bound by that person's schedule. We were bound by their ability to remember what they had done and do it again. So we sat down with this team and we looked at what it would take, and we gave them an estimate of 400 hours. 400 hours to create that server, 10 weeks. Absolutely unacceptable. And we ended up creating the servers in a lot less time, but that 400-hour estimate was because we were so lost about where to even start with creating servers. Our initial goal was to pull up a server that existed and just step by step look through IIS, look through the installed apps, look through the dependencies, look through the event log, and try and figure out how we could piece another one of these together. Historically, every one of our environments and servers past a certain point had become one of those one last server models. This will be the last time we need a server for this purpose. This will be the last time we need one of these built. So just do whatever you can to get it built. Just do whatever you can to get it working. We'll deal with the aftermath later. And we fell into that phase again and again where just one time make it work. I know it's not best practice. We just really need it to work, right? And the other pain point was the analogy of treating our servers like cattle, not like pets, right? We had pet servers. We had people who loved those servers. And ideally, you manage infrastructure like cattle. At some point, your server is just a server, and if it's sick or if it's misbehaving or if it has an error, you can just blow it away and make a new one, right? And we were not in that model with a lot of our environment management. So we spent a lot of time looking at our servers, documenting our servers, looking at our applications, documenting requirements and dependencies, and we completely revamped our documentation. In fact, that might be one of the biggest things that we started with was documentation. It is so hard to automate when you don't have a good framework to start with. So we documented and documented and documented what we needed to have happen. And we would document it, automate it, and repeat. We would document what application has dependencies required. We would automate installing those dependencies, and we would repeat. We would automate, we would document what IIS settings needed to exist. We would automate those IIS settings, and we would repeat. And what we ended up creating was a library of dependencies that we could call upon to create a server based on the requirements of the application. Our goal was to reduce the time that people touch servers, period. Whether that is in creating, maintaining, administrating, fixing, whether that is the pet servers that we have, we wanted to reduce the time that people spent plugged into servers doing things. The biggest piece, perhaps to change, was that creation. But we played into the maintenance, the remediation. We'll discuss all of that in the next couple of slides as well. I do want to highlight that we had both web servers and SQL servers, and we treated those as initially we treated those as separate pipelines, right? Because we could do a lot more things with the SQL servers than we could with the web servers right offhand. Our SQL team just had more documentation in place. So we could build the server, add the GMSA, install SQL, even run some of the configuration scripts the SQL team had initially. But we were building our dependency library to work for both web servers and SQL servers. So Ansible Tower, or Ansible in general, right? We had a request come in to set up 4 new environments, and one of our major applications was having a major version upgrade. It required new schema changes, new application changes. It wasn't backward compatible, and we needed a couple of months to vet everything. So we needed a whole new set of environments, a new dev, QA, pre-production, and someday future production environment set up. And that was a perfect cutover for us to start using Ansible Tower to automate this. Nobody wants to create 4 identical sets of each server. We're talking dozens of servers in the end. Nobody wants to touch each of those, to create them, to install things, to import SSL certificates, to do backups. Nobody wants to do Windows patching on those for more months. So we took all of the pieces that we could of our environment management and we automated them. So let's talk about some of those steps real quick. I'm going to move forward one more slide. We ran into benefits from day one. The first thing that we did was we said, okay, we need to, sorry, I'm going to go out of order in this slide, starting at the bottom. We need to standardize some of these things. We need to standardize OS versions, application versions, SQL install versions. We need to standardize even things like Tomcat dependency installs, SSL certificates. We need to standardize how we tag all of our servers for monitoring and for backups. And we started, like I said, with a documentation process, right? We documented how we were going to install or what we were going to install on different kinds of servers. And then we, piece by piece, playbook by playbook, we automated those things. We broke down what was required for each server in an environment, documented it, automated it, and just kept moving through. So the first thing we did was template management. We will run Windows 2019 on as many servers as we can, 2016 on some servers that are required, and unfortunately, I think we have 1 or 2 that are still Windows 2012 for now, not for long, right? Ideally. But we worked on standardizing OS versions, standardizing GMSAs for permissions and security, worked on standardizing how we did our backups and tagging in VMware. And then we took a look at our VM templates and we said, look, we have an infrastructure team, great team. They will occasionally power on a VM, do all of the Windows patching, power on a template, do all the Windows patching, rename it, and save it off. So every month they move their templates to the latest Windows version. Why don't we do that? Why don't we have Ansible clone a VM template, power it on, do Windows updates on it, and then save it with a new date-based name? Step 1, infrastructure team, you guys don't have to update your templates anymore. We'll do it, and we'll do it every week. And we started seeing the payback from that right away, saving those guys a few hours, a month of template management and template patching. Server creation was perhaps the biggest piece that we saw those saves on. We, for both web and SQL servers, immediately began standardizing, documenting, automating, and repeating through those steps. Web servers, we're talking about standardizing templates, the dependencies, pulling IP addresses from the correct blocks, DNS entries, SSL certs, GMSAs for access, tags for the backups, a lot of the application installs. Our deployment system is Octopus Deploy, so we install an Octopus Deploy tentacle, and then we can, from that, kick off a deployment script and deploy the code all the way through. Initially, we would be creating servers or partial application groups. As we continue to progress down this road, we ended up creating partial environments or complete environments further and further along. So the first lunch and learn, the first demo that we showed, we made an application server. The next one that we showed, we made 3 application servers and their SQL server on the back end. The next one that we showed was 12 servers, a bunch of app servers, a few SQL servers, and a couple other servers, right? And it just keeps growing and growing. And we felt like what we were doing was building up that snowball. The more things that we could automate, the more we built up our dependency library, our infrastructure library, the more that our playbooks grew, the easier it was to roll more tasks into that process. The SQL team was the other one, right? We had gone from taking the SQL server through 5 teams to just 1 team. Originally, the SQL team would request a server. Infrastructure team would provision a VM. Security team would add a couple of things, SSL cert, the GMSAs. The operations team would set up backups. So we would install SQL Server, and then we'd hand it back to the SQL team, and they would run their scripts. We moved all of that into our team. We provision a server. We install the scripts, we provision a server. We install SQL Server on that server. We give it an IP and a DNS and a GMSA and this SSL cert, and we hand it to the SQL team with all of their work done. 1 team turnaround instead of a 5-team turnaround. If we didn't gain anything else, the fact that we're touching less teams is a huge payoff. But now that Ansible does all of that automatically, we're also seeing huge reductions in the time that we are touching servers. Data management was a huge piece of it for us as well. We have been working toward preloading those SQL servers with data. If you can tell me what environment it's going to pull data from, we can copy over some of that data. If you're telling me what environment data you want generated, we can generate some of that data. And that obviously is an effort outside of just the DevOps team. That requires some method of generating SQL data via applications or SQL scripts. So that's an ongoing process that we're seeing payback from. Standardization we talked about. I'm going to move on to the next slide. So we saw big changes, right? Servers went from touching 5 teams to just going through our team, just the DevOps team. And because of that, we absorbed more areas that we touched, but our goal wasn't to absorb those responsibilities and keep them, right? So we made a tool that would provision a server, install SQL in the GMSA, and give it to the SQL team. We gave that tool to infrastructure, and we said, look, guys, from now on, when the SQL team requests a server, you run this playbook, and it will call these playbooks, and it will provide to them a full server. And that comes back to that initial slide of the changing of the purpose, right? We are no longer a reactive team. We are taking projects and we're handing them off to another team to run. We are proactively creating projects, and when we're done with them, we're passing them off to somebody else. We also see that in terms of remediation. We've started making scripts to our monitoring system will alert us when there's an issue with our Tomcat service. And we have made a tool that will trigger an alert and offer auto remediation in the form of restarting Tomcat, restarting the server, taking it out of the load balancer. When we get that notification email, we don't get it. Operations gets it, or the development team gets it. When they get that email that there's an outage, they get options within the email on how they can solve the problem. And we're measuring our metrics, and we're revising those metrics and continuing to change what we offer as remediation, but we're making it a point to hand those tools off to other teams. One of the biggest pieces of payback that the developers have loved is that servers can be recreated exactly. There's no more tiny differences between dev and QA and pre-production that run into certain issues. There's no more of those tiny hidden gotchas that take a long time to debug and nobody would ever know was there. We have confidence that our servers are set up exactly how we expect. And what that means is we touch servers less, because if I need to make a change to the server, I need to make a change to the Ansible Tower playbook for that server. So our teams are coming to us with documentation and process changes. We're scripting those changes and providing an updated server. Down to my last couple of minutes, I do want to touch on the fact that what I've described does not need to be your end goal, right? We are no longer maintaining servers. We're working to rebuild servers when we have changes or patches, right? We're no longer, first thing we did was we automated patching. The second thing we did is we automated creating a new server, applying the patches and replacing the live server, right? We also are looking down the pipeline at using Packer, using Terraform. Now that we can manage our environments, we're moving down the road of blue-green deployments in pre-production and production, where we are going to cut our outage time and our deployment time substantially and significantly. And I touched on the auto remediation, providing teams, when they get an alert, providing them options on how to remediate that much faster and much more easily. So this plan has shown us huge benefits. but it's also shown us more potential. And I think that's one of the most exciting things to communicate with you guys, is that whether or not you're thinking about automating environment management, or you're partially automating it, or you're just looking for ideas, man, the potential here is huge, right? If you integrate Packer and Terraform, you can mix hybrid and cloud models. If you want to add blue-green environments or auto remediation, this is a huge jumping off point. Looking at what Ansible Tower can do to manage your environments, allowing you to spend less time touching servers, is huge. Then you take that time that you're saving and you work on creating better models of releases, better debugging, better remediation, and you save that time that you can put somewhere more valuable. Our biggest drive as a company was reducing the non-valuable maintenance work so that we could spend that time on value-producing work. And looking at our environment configuration model, we took hundreds of hours of environment management, worked to automate that. We are still working through the process of automating that to provide more stable environments, more controlled environments, and then more value-producing work. I appreciate your guys' time. Hopefully this is a helpful way for you to think about managing environments, where you can go in the future. Definitely love to hear any questions, any thoughts furthering down the road. Thanks for your time.